I think the thing that really caught my eye when you reached out to us again was talking about how like the mental health journey is not a linear one. So I'm curious about that path.
Is it okay if I start kind of where that podcast recording was and give kind of like a Cliff Notes abbreviated version?
Yeah, as long as you don't say that like we're the reason for it and like we're the ones that cause it, because if that's the case, I'm ending this fucking recording right now and it will never see the light of day. Go ahead.
So like we ended that Zoom call and I just had a complete mental breakdown right then and there.
And it was,
cut it.
And it was something specifically that Brian said.
I think it was at minute 23, 24.
Yeah. Brian tried to make an analogy that had something to do with a lazy river, and that just sent you off the deep end.
It broke me.
Well, this is going to be an interesting little deep dive here. Folks who have been OG listeners of the show may or may not remember because, you know, we put out a lot of episodes and this episode was a couple of years ago. Back in September of 2023, it was episode a 755th episode we did.
Just to clarify, while you're still listening, this is not one of these re-release episodes.
No.
We're not just going to play that episode again.
Nope. It's going to be the opposite. And the episode was titled A Petri Dish of Emotions, and our guest was Cameo. And we are actually sitting down with Cameo again today. And the reason why is because when we spoke to Cameo back in the day, and now I haven't gone back and listened to it, so I'm trying to jog my memory here. But all I remember was, Cameo, you came off as the most driven, like balls to the wall, busy student who was also talking about your history of living with an eating disorder and juggling mental health issues. But at the time you were like, it seemed like you really had it all figured out. It was like, okay, I've got my mental health stuff, but I've learned to kind of package it in a way where it actually works for me. And the only thing I could think of was like, okay, but also, Jesus Christ, you sound like you're really working hard as a student to the degree where if I was in your shoes, I would be fucking going completely bananas. But the episode was it was just really, really wonderful to hear this perspective of a young woman who was really, it seemed to be, you were thriving and you were like in a good place.
I think also very, like, especially, I think, were you 21 maybe at the time that we recorded?
21, yeah.
And to be so, like, self-aware and in touch with, like, the reality of the experiences that you've been through, and, like, to like, sort of seem like you really had your head wrapped around the situation and that it lived in this, like, nice compartment in your brain that you could, like, sort of look at and reflect on and talk about, but like didn't seem like it was so much of a problem or would become a problem again in your life.
And then you recently reached out and said, guys, my life's a fucking dumpster fire. I'd love to come on and talk about how mental health is not a linear path and it's going to be a bummer. So let's do it. And I said, hey, that sounds great. So Cameo, let's start there. Since A Petri Dish of Emotions, what has shifted for you? Day in, day out, how are you now relating to your mental health struggles, like things with anxiety and OCD?
I think to start off, I want to say, like, I maybe went, like the story of Icarus when they went too close to the sun.
Yeah.
I think that's a good metaphor for my situation a bit, maybe.
There's the episode title. She flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, that's why my hair is red. I burnt it. Much cheaper than going to the salon and dyeing it.
That's a great ginger joke.
That's also how I burned away my soul. So all in one. I have since re-listened to that episode, and I just want to apologize for my voice, and it's probably going to continue into this episode, but it's really frustrating when you listen to that previous recording, and I know for a fact where I was mentally at that time. And since that time, I think I've only become more introspective, almost to a fault, because I know exactly the damage I've I don't want to necessarily say the damage I've done to my own life, because I think that puts a lot of personal responsibility on someone struggling with mental health. And I don't think they should be at fault for all of their feelings, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But especially when you come from a place and you feel quite self-assured in that essentially things are starting to fall into place, because I went through a long time of kind of hitting my head against the wall. And then I finally thought, okay, I'm in a good place academically, career-wise. I'm in a good lab that I'm working in. This is my last year of undergrad. I'm very aware of what I want to do. And then it essentially completely falls off the rails. It's exceptionally frustrating to then look back on that and goes, wow, you really messed up. Like, what did you do wrong? Or like, what was the moment in which I could have shifted to avoid this trajectory?
And do you think it is avoidable?
I often, because I have a lot of time-stamped photos from the time that I think I quote unquote went downhill. And a lot of the time I'm like, oh, if this day I just didn't do X, Y, Z, maybe I wouldn't have fallen down the rabbit hole so much. And I don't know, with my OCD and as I think I've said previously, I don't see myself as the most intelligent person, but I like to think that if I work hard enough, I can truly achieve anything. And I think I just got too obsessed with that mentality. And I still honestly am very obsessed with that mentality, that it may have just been my obsessive personality that put me there, and that's keeping me there presently. My apologies, I'm not phrasing that in the best way, but I hope that answers your question.
How about maybe take us back to where this sort of slip up happened, or at least where you feel like it started to begin. What did that look like? Walk us through the sort of journey of the peaks and valleys there. Because again, I think the thing that really caught my eye when you reached out to us again was talking about how like the mental health journey is not a linear one. So I'm curious about that path.
Is it okay if I start kind of where that podcast recording was and give kind of like a Cliff Notes abbreviated version?
Yeah, as long as you don't say that like we're the reason for
started
it
on
and like
the
we're the ones that
day
cause it. Because if
we
that's the case, I'm ending this fucking recording right now and it will never see the light of day. Go ahead.
So like we ended that Zoom call and I just had a complete mental breakdown right then and there.
And it was,
cut it.
and it was something specifically that Brian said.
I think it was at minute 23, 24.
Yeah. Brian tried to make an analogy that had something to do with a lazy river, and that just sent you off the deep end.
It broke me.
Sorry, guys, I'll shut up.
Don't worry, I'll send you the therapy receipts afterwards. But essentially where I was at the time of that podcast recording is I was completing a co-op at BC Cancer, which was going to lead into my honors project. So essentially an individual research project for undergrads that provides them research experience similar to a master's or a PhD, but on a much smaller scale. And then I had my final year of courses to undertake for my degree in microbiology. And I'd been waiting I had waited since my first year to try and get into this lab because it was fairly prestigious and I loved the work they were doing. And I thought I was really setting myself up at the time because academically I was in this lab and I had my last year planned out. And then mentally and physically, I thought I was doing better. And as I said in the previous recording, I believe one of you asked if you thought I would deal with eating disorders for the rest of my life. And I very honestly, and I stand by the statement, said that, yes, I think it will always stay with me, kind of like the fear of some foods and be a nagging voice in the back of my head. But to an extent, I think I'll be able to compartmentalize it, or at least as long as I'm aware of it, be able to continually tackling it then on for the rest of my life. And I also at the time was speaking about, I want to reverse diet and get my calories up because I had randomly put on some weight that I've truly been under eating since I was 8 years old. And I had tracked every single morsel of food that went into my mouth. So it was extremely frustrating when I was working out every day. I live on a farm. Why am I getting larger? And I was kind of started to lose weight around that time, and I was completely relieved. So in my head, it's like, oh, so you may be eating a bit more food. You're getting healthier in that respect. You have good an academic life. I thought that was the upward trajectory. But what ultimately happened is that I don't necessarily think this was the catalyst, but that lab turned out to be an exceptionally toxic environment. And it made me have to leave at the start of September, which is when the co-op kind of ended and you would begin the project. And that left me completely scrambling. It was a very stressful situation and it was very hard to leave, but I reached out to some other academics I knew and they gave me the full support that you need to leave that lab right now. That's not a good place for you. I was exceptionally fortunate in that I got into another lab that was a lot more positive for the year. But at the same time, physically, it sounds kind of strange. I started getting very obsessed with steps and how many steps I was getting for a day, because every time I tried to increase my calorie intake, I would kind of counteract it by walking more. And it's very well documented on my fitness app, connected to my Apple Watch. Like I can go to specific days and see like where the jump happened. And then every time I walked a bit more, I had to beat it the next day. And it ultimately got to a point where now for truly like the past 2 years, I've been walking over 40,000 steps a day, which takes hours to do. And that's on top of weight workouts, farm chores and everything. And I lost a lot of weight and got to my quote unquote goal weight, but I was killing myself every day. I got to, like, for example, I hyperextended my knee, then I stress fractured it. Then I hyperextended my other knee, got a green line fracture in the first leg, and then got a potential stress fracture in the second leg. And I kept walking on them because I was like, well, I got to get my steps in. And I went to the doctor numerous times and I was kind of cocky about it because I was like, oh, I can handle any amount of pain. I'm fine. I'm doing well in school. Though I was really relying on recordings of lectures because it was getting so stressful to leave the house to get my steps in. And every single minute of my day was planned with studying or what I had to do. And then my doctor was like, you need to drop out of school for the next semester or you cannot keep living like this. And I was like, no, I'm fine. And she tried to hospitalize me on 3 separate occasions. And it was like screaming matches in the doctor's office of her telling me like, I'm going to admit you for psychiatric help. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And she wanted to give me Ativan, I believe, just to calm me down. And I was like, no, because then I can't drive home and do my chores. Then I can't go do farm work and finish my step count. And it ultimately ended with me needing to take the next semester off school and then restarting for my 5th year. I apologize. That was very rambly, but that's kind of the condensed version.
No, it gives good context. And it, like the rambliness of it, I wouldn't even really say it was rambly, but like it does give us it gives me a little bit of a framework to kind of understand. And not understand, that's not the right way to put it, but at least to like hear at least what it sort of looks like from the outside perspective of like the chaos that's going on and you seem to be juggling this like almost like at the same time self-aware, knowing that like, okay, I'm doing these things that are fucking just taking a huge toll on my body, like forcing yourself out to walk so much that you're blowing your knee out and having stress fractures whilst managing your routine on a farm and trying to study at the same time. And you're obsessing over your weight and you've got all these things that you're thinking about. It just sounds like it's like a swirl of like overwhelming mental fuckery.
But
and the thing
you
that
self-aware though,
my question is, at least the self-awareness is in her stating this.
Yes.
My question is, when you're in the thick of it and you're in those moments where your doctor's trying to like basically Form 1 you and put you into the hospital, are you battling internally with the like angel on the one shoulder, devil on the other, where you know they're right, and yet the other voice is going, fuck that. They're just, they don't get it. Or is all of this just in retrospect?
I honestly think I was incredibly self-aware at the time. And I think even now, one of the most frustrating parts is that I am very self-aware. I like to think of myself as a fairly logical person, and even anyways very academically minded. So like I know for a fact exactly where I'm going wrong every day. I know what I did to mess up my body and my mind, and I'm still doing it. And I think that's one of the most frustrating points when you're like, get your head on straight. And you feel like you're in a cage, like you're trapped in this prison because you can see the path out and you're shunning it away to favor this masochistic routine that you're completing every single day.
Yeah, I don't want to I don't want to trivialize it, and I don't want to because I know this isn't the same thing, but
you're about to.
But when I hear you say that, I can't help but think about I have the exact same mental process when I'm trying to quit nicotine. So it's like I wake up and I go, I'm not going to have nicotine today. And I know that I don't want to have it because it's fucking with my dopamine. And if I stop having it, I know it's going to be a hard couple of days, but when I'm over that hump, I'm going to feel so much better about myself and I'm going to be more productive, yada, yada. And then I realize it's 10:30 and I haven't had my nicotine, and I run to the pharmacy and grab some Zins because I just fucking need it. And then I do the Zins and I've gone through 9 by the time it's fucking 9 p.m. and I'm pissed at myself. And I think that the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think a lot of people can relate to that mental process. It doesn't have to be with nicotine.
People do that with things like
people do it with fucking everything.
Just
exactly.
Procrastinate, knowing what you have to do for the day to accomplish your work, but then
and you see yourself fucking up,
making one decision at a time that pushes that work a little bit forward, and then at the end of the day you go, fuck, I didn't get anything done.
Yeah. How does it what do you think is going on under the hood when you are in that cycle of seeing it happen? Is it like the nicotine addiction where it's almost an addiction where you sweep it under the rug, or is it more of it's too hard to face it? Or what do you think neurologically is happening?
Neurologically, I believe it's similar to the nicotine addiction example, because honestly, I think I got a high from what I was doing. Since I essentially follow a similar routine to what I did back then. I've since put on some weight that, if I'm being completely honest, I've been trying to lose it ever since. And I haven't, it's frustrating because sorry, this is going to take a slight side tangent, but I promise it comes back. But I've put on weight since I got to my quote unquote goal weight and I was happy with myself. And in that time, I was doing a lot of toxic behaviors. And since putting on some weight, I've almost doubled down on those toxic behaviors, and that's what made it worse. So it's you just gotta be kinder to yourself or do something that will make you happier, and that would hypothetically put me in a better spot, but I'm actively deciding not to. But going back to where my mindset was at that time, I honestly think I got a huge dopamine hit from what I was doing. I was in a state of extreme pain. Very specifically, I remember I went into the lab I'm currently doing my master's in, and I was helping someone start a staining procedure at 6:30 in the morning. And I phoned my mom as I was walking into the building, just bawling my eyes out because my leg was in so much pain. And she was telling me to go to the emergency room for it. And I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. I got to get in here, start this, go home and get right on the treadmill. And I could not walk. It was truly the worst, if not the second worst amount of pain I've ever experienced in my life. But I almost felt pride in that. I just remember how regimented I was. And when I would go to the doctor and she would say she's worried about me, and I would kind of sit there and be like, I'm fine. I'm still moving. I can truly handle anything. If I can be in this much pain, if no matter how little sleep I get, I can keep going. And I remember, and honestly to this day, thinking about how am I going to incorporate 40,000 steps into my day when I'm older? Thinking if I want to go to med school, how am I still going to get those steps in? Because that was a more realistic future for me than getting better.
When do you when you talk about this, as you sit here right now and as as far as we can ascertain by just sitting here and being with you, you're you seem to be in this very honest type of mindset, honest and reflective type of mindset where you can look back and analyze things and go, hey, I was like this and I was doing this. And, I think that this was happening. I was procrastinating and I was making these bad decisions or whatever. And this led to that. Does it feel when you're in a place where you seem to be right now, in this very moment, does it feel like you are talking about a different person, or does it feel like it's you? Cause I know that mental health issues can sometimes feel like somebody else is driving the bus. And I think that's subjective depending on the person that you're talking to or the issue that they deal with specifically. But I'm wondering if that feels that way to you, or if it feels like you when you think about those times.
I really appreciate that question. And I think that it feels like a different person. And in all honesty, I'm trying to get back to that girl before it got really bad. The person who thought they had it all figured out and who had more of that healthy approach to it, who was eating better to fuel their body, had less compulsions, as you can tell, I'm very caught up on my weight, and that is a lingering habit from my eating disorder. But I thought that I was a much harder worker back then, I felt like. And I felt like now I've kind of honestly just given up on myself. And I've been trying, and I've lost a lot of my motivation. And I'm like, God, Cameo, every single day you have to do better. Where's the person who got to campus every day at 6 a.m.? Now you've really screwed yourself. And it feels like that other version of myself was someone who had their head on straight. And ever since, I've truly just, I've accepted that my baseline is so low that I don't know what it means to get out of it. When you truly feel that, you wake up and you're swamped 6 feet under, then you don't, to get through the day just feels like enough.
Yeah.
But then you get to the end of the day and you're like, what could I have done better?
One of the things that, in doing this show for 10 years, we've covered topics under the umbrella of mental health a ton. And in particular, when talking about things like eating disorders, we have a handful of episodes that delve into that topic. And I don't recall it being a specific moment or a specific statement from somebody in particular, but there's something about, I know at some point we had it internal discussion, and it was based on external feedback or external sort of opinion, that when we talk about things like eating disorders, things that typically come with trigger warnings at the start of YouTube videos or social media clips or whatever, that you have to be really careful and cautious not to get too into the nitty-gritty details about numbers or calories, or how a person particularly watches their weight, or how a person particularly counts their steps, or how, it's those details are I'm not saying this as fact. I'm saying this is the thing that we felt, or that we were sort of told, is those things are the things that could trigger someone. Those things are the things that could make somebody listening have a worse experience. And I know that there's been episodes in the past that we recorded where maybe we felt like that sort of came out in the conversation, and we would either censor it by cutting out that entire chunk, or we would just not put the episode out at all, because we thought, okay, we don't want to fuck up. We don't want to trigger someone. We don't want to make this worse. We've been doing it for 10 years now. And I think we're at a point now where there's a little bit less of a feeling of needing to tiptoe around things, and maybe that will come and bite us in the ass in the future, but maybe it won't. The whole point of saying all of this, Cameo, is I'm curious to know about your thoughts around the typical sort of like Instagram recovery arc that you see. That is like, somebody has recovered, and we don't have to talk about the details about what things were like when they were bad, but like, this is what it's like, versus hearing this stuff that I'm sure is actually potentially triggering for somebody out there. But for you yourself, do you feel like hearing or seeing these types of things on, whether it's social media or, I don't know, however else you're getting your content, do you think it's helpful for you or anybody out there? Or do you think it's more so harmful? I'm just trying to wrap my head around this, because I do feel like this is one of those conversations that when it's over, there might be this like thought of like, oh God, guys, did we fuck up kind of thing? I know we're not going to have that conversation.
I'm always afraid of that feeling with eating disorders, because I feel this feeling of like, actually probably because we just get so many emails about it.
Yeah, we get hate about this kind of thing. And so I'm just curious about like your thoughts on all of that. And I know that was very rambly, but I hope it sort of made sense.
No, it definitely made sense. And I just want to come out and say what I did in terms of my step count. I don't mean to trigger anyone, and I'm incredibly sorry if I did by chance. And like, what I did is not prescriptive at all what anyone should do. What I'm doing to my body every day is extremely harmful. And I think a lot of people, honestly, who are struggling the most, they seek out the videos with the numbers, with the step counts, with the weights. Because going back, to me personally, it was like a dopamine hit. Because I'm like, oh, maybe if they do this and I emulate that, maybe I'll get to where they look. And going back on what you said about the recovery accounts, on social media, first off, I am incredibly proud and thrilled for anyone who reaches a point where they are happy with themselves and they have a life seemingly free from the mind fuck that is an eating disorder. Because it takes a toll on you, like any mental illness. It takes a toll on you, your mind, your body, and truly anyone around you. It makes you a shell of a person, and its impacts far extend beyond your own little bubble. It hurts your family, your friends, and I think that's an aspect that isn't talked about enough. And I think they are beneficial to a point, but at the same time, personally, and this honestly comes from a place of jealousy, I find them really frustrating because I didn't have that experience. And then I look at them and go, well, why didn't you have, for example, 3 months of journaling and therapy, and you found the right medication and suddenly you're better? And that could be with eating disorders, depression, anxiety, OCD, or insert whatever mental illness you choose. And it's like, oh, you seemingly had supportive friends and family. And it is very picturesque to an extent and aesthetic. And you're like, oh, if I just follow this, maybe I'll get better. When you don't, you just feel like something's wrong with you. And personally, that makes me double down on how I feel and makes me, honestly, I feel kind of worse about myself because I'm like, am I the anomaly who's never going to get better? And then I get more stuck in my ways because I imagine, well, what's the point of even trying then? I hope that answered your question sufficiently.
So with that, what's your hope that people take away from this conversation we're having, whether it's someone who is in a similar position as you or someone who isn't at all, but is hearing this and just hearing somebody struggle? What's your hope is the takeaway from this?
Honestly, that, because I know I sound very depressed and pessimistic at the moment, but I am really trying in whatever way I can to get better. And I think there's a lot of people who are struggling with mental health who have been in it for so long that it's essentially a part of their personality and so tightly integrated into their life that they can't see a future without it. And they do just give up, or they say, I'm trying, and not to doubt anyone's efforts, but they could try harder. And like, I am completely at fault of that. I have cried my eyes out and said, I want to get better. And then the next day I do the exact same behaviors. I've done that essentially for the past year and a half. So I know I'm not trying hard enough. And I don't think the whole idea of getting better should be completely on the person, because if it was, I think a lot less people would struggle with mental illness. But ultimately what I want to come away from this conversation is that no matter how deep in the hole you think you are, or if you think you went backwards, like, you just have to take that one step forward and try the next day. And if some days you may go backwards, but there is a life in which you are not your anxiety, you are not your eating disorder, you are not your OCD or depression, but you really have to come to terms with that. And it's taken me a long time to think that I can be more than the girl who is obsessing over every small detail in their life. And it's honestly scary to think of who I am when I don't have my entire day consumed with fruitless tasks or constant worry.
Mm-hmm. How do you...
Can you just so that we have an idea, Cameo, like if you were to sort of plot where you're at now in terms of, like, let's say like 0 is the darkest days that you've had and 10 is like the best. You know, when we spoke to you last, where would you be on that graph, and where would you say you are now?
I think when you spoke to me previously, I was maybe at like an 8. Like, I really thought I was on that upwards trajectory, as I previously said. And then going into that fall, when I was losing the weight, getting really obsessed, super high anxiety with school, despite how much I was struggling, that worry, for the most part, the stress I had was tied to my academics. And that is a worry that you can fix by studying. It's a very actionable kind of stress, in my opinion. Like, you can be stressed about yourself and you kind of don't know where to go from there. But say, if you're stressed about a test, you can study. And hypothetically, that will make you less stressed and more competent in what you're about to do. So at that time, I'd honestly say I was maybe close, like a bit higher on that scale. And then coming to now, I'm truly at like a 0 or a 1. I feel like I feel so incredibly trapped. And the longer in which I'm in this state, I'm like, honestly, just self-hatred every day, it gets worse because it's a self-fueling cycle.
Mm-hmm. I hope it's okay to ask this, but prior to answering that question that Brian just asked you, you know, you said something which I think is a really great takeaway, which is like, no matter how low you are, no matter how hard it seems, how impassable this weight might feel, there's always a step forward. And so hearing you say that, like, in this moment, you are at your lowest, what do you envision is your first step forward? Are you in a place to think about that, or are you thinking about that, or do you know?
I obsess over it every single day. Every day I go, because like, when I say, like, I relive, like, my life is Groundhog Day. It is get up, do the exact same things. I use the exact same dishes every day. I do my chores the identical way. I pretty much have worn the same hoodie, or I know I've worn the same hoodie every single day for over 2 years at this point, and just keep washing it. Because with my OCD, even something as different as using a different cup or wearing a different shirt, it stresses me out inside. So, like, and even still, like, as I'm recording this to you, I put my hair down. This is the first time I've probably worn my hair down in a year and a half. I usually have it in like a bun and I'm suffocating it on top of my head. But every day I'm like, what are you going to do different? Are you going to eat something different? Are you even going to take a different walking route today when you go outside? And I think there's a lot of steps I quote unquote take every day, but it's kind of like I'm just trying to check a box. And it's really hard for me to be serious with myself and goes, what's a step I'm going to take that's going to mean something? Like I, for example, have a habit of restricting my calories all day and then eating them pretty much all at once at night because I'm trying to like see how low I can get the scale with eating like nothing and no water. And like it completely messes up my digestion every single day. It probably spikes my cortisol. It's not a healthy thing.
Totally.
But it's like I could eat earlier, or I could cut back my steps and not do 40. Like yesterday I did 45,000 steps a day. Like I could try and cut them back, but that absolutely terrifies me. I could, like, even just the act of sitting down to do a task that isn't, honestly, sitting down to do any task scares me because like I constantly have to be moving. Doing that would be quote like similar to an act of rebellion against my OCD. So like honestly today, what am I doing to change? I would hope maybe I'll eat earlier. Maybe I'll not, like maybe I'll leave my house. And it's also hard because every time I try and change something and I don't see an immediate benefit, I go, oh, see, you're stuck like this. So it's
what about support network, or like, so, because everything I'm hearing you say right now, and I don't want to turn this into a fucking therapy session because like we aren't therapists. I'm just listening. I'm just hearing. The first thing I will say is maybe try taking your hair and flipping it over your face like in The Ring and doing the interview like that for the rest of the interview. Maybe that'll fix your OCD. I don't know.
I was just gonna put a bag over my head too.
But
save your screen from cracking.
everything that you've said right there, I mean, it seems very much like a solo mission that sounds hard. Is there anybody in your support network? Is there anybody close to you that you rely on that is a part of your harm reduction, sort of habits or a part of the way that you outreach for help? Because doing it by yourself is I mean, I have a feeling that's going to be a pretty fucking hard task.
When I initially started to really go downhill, I probably started seeing my doctor in September 2023. And it wasn't necessarily about, I think I went to her and said, like, I'm really anxious. I just want to put out there first, I'm incredibly fortunate to have a family doctor because I know a lot of people don't. And I have been with her for years and she knows me fairly well as a person. And based on my mental state at the time, she wanted to see me every 2 weeks to check on me because she was very worried. And it honestly felt relieving to go see someone who seemingly cared so deeply about you. And she was trying to get me on different medications. And though we had, I don't want to necessarily degrade it to a spat, but over her wanting to get me serious psychiatric help. But it felt like she truly cared. Since that time, I don't want to put any words in her mouth, but I think she's somewhat given up on me. Like she doesn't know what to do. She's tried to put me in in-person eating disorder programs, or she had a program, an in-person OCD treatment center that she put me on the waiting list for that ultimately closed down. So that never came to fruition. In terms of therapy, I have gone a few times, and part of me almost wonders if I'm too self-aware for it. I don't know, that comes off very poorly, I think, on my end. But when I sit there, I'm like thinking, oh, I just pay you to try and be nice to me or to talk to me. And then I end it and I'm like, oh, are you better now? And especially, I think a hard part with therapy as well is that it's great for everyone to go to therapy, but it's incredibly expensive for a lot of people. Like when it costs $150 to $200, And then I come out of a session and I'm like, am I actually better? Or could I have just, most of the time, my brain goes, how much work could you have gotten done in that 50-minute period? And I just don't go. And the financial factor is a huge reason why I don't go every week. Earlier this week, I talked to an OCD specialist, and she said, based on your situation, I want to see you twice a week. I had also talked to another OCD therapist that I was on a wait list for an extremely long time. And in the second session, she verbatim told me, I cannot help you. And I left that just broken because I was like, it was almost like validation that I can't get any better. And then I have truly reached out to every kind of wellness support service my university has. I have had so many phone calls with like Island Health and trying to see someone. And as much as these supports are supposedly made available, and I think a lot of the time universities and companies and institutions want to promote mental health services and say, look, we're doing the right thing. There's a huge gap between saying we have these services available, actually having the services, and then them being helpful and accessible to the public. Because I have had such a poor experience on that front.
I totally agree with that. So I've been like diagnosed with ADHD in like 4 or 5 different ways. And I really wanted to go to the ADHD clinic to get, to speak to somebody who could like actually either give me medication or like help me with strategies. And the hardest part about getting into that clinic is that as someone with ADHD, it's never a priority for you. And so you like have access to that service kind of, but like their appointments are 6 months out. You have to remember that. You have to be available in those days. There's like all of these like soft barriers, I guess
kind
I
of
would
like
call
a
them.
hilarious like paradox.
Totally. And then when you get there, it's like the guy that I saw was like, so do you want medication? And I was like, I don't know. Do I want medication? He's like, well, you're here at the clinic to basically get medication. I was like, I want to talk to you about ADHD and like what type of ADHD do I have? Is there strategies for this? Should I be doing this, that? Like, what does medication do? What types of medications are there? There's like so many questions. And I had a really disappointing experience with that. But like, it seems so on the back of like that sort of assumption that I'm making from my side, I also realize that there's like, you can kind of soft do those things. Like, you said you're reaching out to all of these clinics, you're doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm curious from your perspective, like, do you feel like you're giving like a really honest try at these things? Or are you almost just like, or do you feel more like you're like seeking it out to sort of tick that box again, that like you're trying to get better, but really you don't really want to get better?
I think if I'm being honest with myself, I have a lot of fear, and I'm like, I will completely call myself out on my own bullcrap. Like, I could go to therapy twice a week, but it's the act of getting myself to sit down for those sessions, in addition to paying the money to go. I just go, yeah, it's so much easier to just go, it's not worth it, and to diss it all, because I have doubled down so much on my own negative habits. And I currently am on medication. I have not seen any benefits, but like my doctor has tried to get me on a bunch of different medications. And could I try them and give them more of a chance? I could, but I'm honestly just too scared to, because I have like my doubts about them. And it's so much easier to just say, well, they probably won't work for me. And I know it's like a lot of my own problems is like, I'm the reason. Like, it is, as I said previously, like this cycle. It's like Cameo, like you could get better, but I'm so certain that what I'm doing now is the best option. But I also know it isn't. So you just get more frustrated, and that exacerbates the anxiety.
I'm curious, like one thing that doesn't seem to like add up from like a logical, like a quote unquote regular person's perspective, is the idea that you feel like you're doing all of these things to like, you know, let's take the steps, for example. Like you're doing 45,000 steps a day, and to you that's like important to do that because it's going to help you achieve some sort of result. But like the logical, rational part is like, well, that's actually unhealthy. Like we know no doctor is prescribing to walk 45,000 steps a day, and that's going to be the best thing that you can do for yourself. So like, how do you think about this idea of these like OCD routines where you're doing these crazy things that like are, you know, no medical professional would ever prescribe, but to you it's like how does that make sense, or how do you make sense of that?
I think you really hit the nail on the head, and is that I don't make sense of it because, like, with hypothetically, my quote unquote ideal life would be in which I'm not doing those obsessive steps. I'm eating regularly and I'm eating enough and I am happy with my weight and doing better. But what I'm doing instead is that I'm doing 45,000 steps a day, probably hugely spiking my cortisol the second I wake up. I'm eating super late at night to try and get my weight lower, which I'm just completely destroying my digestive system. And I know that for a fact. And I'm setting myself up for a really crappy next day. And that just causes me to repeat the cycle. And there is no logic around it. And I wish I had a better way of explaining it, but it is this very dual way of looking at it where it's like, I know for a fact how I live my life is so screwed up. And I am still justifying it any way I can because it's familiar. It's what I know. And I know the more that I do it, like I've had days where I've gotten 50,000 steps. I didn't lose a pound. I have days where I've restricted more. I didn't lose any weight. I have days, it's like I didn't feel better. In the moment, I thought, oh, wow, I'm so hardcore. I can do anything. But there was no payoff to it. And you would think that, especially when I've been doing it for so many days, I would have learned my lesson. Like, this makes me feel crappy, ergo, I should stop. But instead, I just do it the next day and the next day and the next day, no matter how bad it feels. Because it's so much easier to fall into the trap of doing the compulsion, worrying about something.
Does that trigger anything in you, like right before, like, let's say you're going to go out for like some huge walk? Are you like right before you leave the door? Don't say
it like it's so good, Taylor. Dude, you
I
said
thought you
it.
were
You
gonna
said
be
it
like,
as
"What's
though
your
it's the most
Strava?"
delicious thing. You're like, you're gonna go for a big walk.
You're going for a big walk.
Fucking Christ!
You're about to hit record on Strava. You're going to get some.
There's no way we can put this episode out
It
now.
must be a local legend around your place.
Hey, okay, yeah. See, Brian knows his Strava language. You know, is there like, you know, right before you walk in the door, are you like, fuck, I'm doing it again? But here we go. Or is there something in your, or is a part of the thought process of the mental thing you're dealing with is that it's going, yeah, go and do it. This is actually a good idea. I know that this is good. We should go and do this.
Second option for sure. Like,
Yeah.
No matter how crappy I feel, I'm like, but you just have to get it done, Cameo. Like, I had days where I'm like, oh crap, I'm behind on steps. I haven't vacuumed yet. I haven't done this at the barn. And I'm like, well, doesn't matter. It's 10 p.m. Like, you're going to get it done. That is how it is. Like, it's such a non-negotiable in my head that, sure, I know it's not right, but it's like, I'm not really going to do anything about it. Because it's like, one of the things about OCD is like, you think the compulsion will bring you relief. But the second you get it done, it just moves on to the next thing. Or you're already thinking about repeating the compulsion to make yourself feel better.
Mm-hmm. It's so wild because you're like disciplined to a fault. Like I think of, and you guys know this, like when I started doing CrossFit, like I had to work out every day. I had to eat, hit my macros. I would
It was
not
extremely
go to
fucking
McDonald's
annoying.
or like ever touch anything like that. Like I was, but for me, that was not easy to do that. Like it was like always this thing that was like, this can't last forever because I'm not like disciplined enough to do it.
I think people have flashes of that. People have flashes of this in different aspects of their life all the time. But the difference being is that it's not like, it doesn't become pervasive.
It doesn't become a detriment to your health.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's where it does become a problem.
Totally. But like
I'm not saying that you're like saying that I know exactly. I know that that's what you're saying.
What I'm saying is it's quite the opposite, because it's like, like for me, it's really hard to do that thing. And there's a lot of effort going into it. But like in your case, Cameo, it's like, it's hard to not do that. Like it's, and obviously to a fault, like it's an illness, but it's
I deeply apologize. I have to answer this. Hello? Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, no, I do.
Don't worry, Cameo, we're just as dumbfounded as you are.
I thought it was
I didn't know my mom had his number.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Bye. Sorry. I had to order a bunch of meds, and
I thought that was a bit.
No, it wasn't. I really did. I'm out of a bunch of my medications, and needed to know.
Whatever, dude. Your medications can wait.
Yeah.
Cameo's like, I'll be right back. I just gotta get some steps in.
Yeah. Hello. Cameo. It's your therapist, and they said, "Come on in." No, sorry. Cameo.
I should have done this interview on my walking pad. really get myself. Of course, I have one.
I was actually wondering.
You think I'm an amateur?
Jesus Christ!
Can I do a slight side tangent really quick?
Yeah,
so 100%. I literally killed my treadmill.
Oh,
so we had a commercial grade treadmill because my mom works out a bunch, and I like killed it. It was making like sounds constantly. It got to the point where you couldn't change the speed. So to get it to even go like 4 miles an hour, you had to set it to a speed of 12. So the top for the treadmill, just to get it to run. And then when it completely broke down and stopped working, I would do all my walking outside because I live across the road from a 10-kilometer lake trail. And eventually when we got the new treadmill, the guy comes in, he goes, "You used that a lot, didn't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I can tell. It's completely toast."
Dude, living across from a 10-kilometer lake trail, that must be like you live next to the crack dealer.
Yeah, right.
Like,
right.
I mean, in the sense
for
that
a minute, I was like, "What are you talking
like,
about?" And then I was like, "Oh, yes,
The trap house is right next door.
Yeah, you live close, like right next to the best place to be out walking.
Cameo,
to walking. Yeah.
I want to ask this, and I don't want to ask this to like. I don't think this episode needs to end on any kind of high note or anything like that. Like the whole point of us agreeing to do this episode with you for this week was to show the harsh reality that like, hey, it's not always fucking nice. It doesn't always end great. However, I feel like it's necessary for me to at least ask, do you feel like do you have a glimmer of hope in you? Do you see that, like more often than not, when these things happen, when folks are struggling with mental health, that it is a cyclical up and down, peaks and valleys? Are you able to conceptualize that? Do you feel like you recognize that this isn't it? Or are you so heavy in the thick of it that like you can't even see that?
I think it's a bit of both. I'm very heavy in the thick of it, but it almost hurts me to say this because based with how I was raised, it feels like almost hard work and suffering is preferable over happiness. I don't mean to sound melodramatic in saying that, but saying this makes me almost cringe inside because it sounds cheesy, but I'm currently just trying to like fake it till I make it, because I think almost I'm at a point now where the frustration will overpower the compulsions and what I'm doing with how because I have completely wasted the past 2 years of my life, and honestly, going back to since I was 8, and this kind of backtracks, but I've been very strong on the sentiment that since I was diagnosed with anorexia when I was 8 years old, I have not really lived my life. Like, every single day has been consumed with weight, calories, compulsions, anxiety, or what have you. And especially in the past 2 years, in which I barely leave my house, I can honestly say I don't have any friends. I just have a lot of animals. My main point of contact with civilization is my mom. And it truly took away that time from my life. And now being 23, I'm just like, crap, I'm so behind. I'm in school for my master's and still everything, but it's like I had so many dreams of where I want to be. So going back to your question, like, do I see a glimmer of hope? Maybe not, but it's like I really have to stop and get honest with myself and take those steps that scare me more than anything, that will put me in a place in which I can start to see progress, and then I'm hoping the ball can keep rolling. I think mental health is exceptionally difficult because if you, for example, break your leg, there is a straight and narrow path to recovery. And hypothetically, your leg will get better and you can move on with your life. There are chronic illnesses where you have them for your entire life, but there may be a treatment option which dulls the effects and you hope to reduce any potential flare-ups. With mental illness, I don't want to say no one can ever live completely free from it, but I do think you constantly need to keep tabs on it, because if you don't, that puts you at risk for falling down into a deeper place where you were previously. So where I am now, and I'm sorry to finally go back to your question properly, I'm hoping that especially in like the next coming months, I can make some legitimate progress, because I can't live my life like this anymore. Like and I use the term life very loosely, because what I do, I don't talk to anyone. I have the same routine. I'm trying to like do a master's, and like when it's like, well, not leaving my house, and I have so many goals academically, professionally, physically that I want to do. And right now I'm truly just living in misery. So I just hope that for anyone in a similar place where you are so ingrained in your mental health struggle, that you can at least look inside and go, you're worth more than how you feel right now. Because no one deserves to feel like this every day. I don't care if it's your worst enemy. There is no life when you wake up every day just wishing for it to be over.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate your answer to that. I appreciate your candidness and your honesty. And for what it's worth, I just want to say that although we have known you for like a total of 2 hours in our lifetime, I do know for a fact that there is a point in your life where you were doing really fantastic and things were going well, and you had, according to, what we've heard from you, you had healthy coping strategies and harm reduction strategies implemented in your life. And I also know that at a time prior to that, it was similar to now, where it was shit and it wasn't great. And it was, you were in the trenches. And so knowing that that is the case, I do, on my behalf, I feel hopeful for you. And I feel like if I was a betting man, which I sort of am, I would bet the house that this isn't forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do, like, I'm rooting for you. I hope that you do find that light on the other side of this, because you're an incredibly intelligent, elegant, smart, goofy young woman who I can't, unfortunately, I just can't accept that this is it for you and that you're not going to get out of this slump.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part about this conversation is like, we can wrap our heads around the mental illness side of it, but the hardest part is like looking at the person that you are and seeing someone who is so smart and so funny and thinking like, oh, fuck, like this has to be your life right now. Like it just doesn't make sense because you as a person deserve so much better than that. I mean, you're fucking 23 years old. Like I just turned 36 this summer. And if I could go back 13 years, also the person I was at 23 fucking sucked too. And there's
Sucked compared
so
to you
much
now.
time. Yeah. That's
No,
what I mean.
just
Compared to
objectively.
me.
Just objectively.
But I just mean like you have so much time. There's actually, you guys should watch the show Stick if you haven't watched it.
Owen Wilson.
It's
he's
Is that the golf show?
He's so
it
charming.
is, yeah. But the, you know what, the guys always make fun of me. They say that I have live, laugh, love written on my walls in my house, which I don't, but I still.
Dude, you are live, laugh, love.
Yeah,
still
you don't need
appreciate
it
it.
written anywhere.
Do you also have Eat, Pray, Love on your nightstand?
I do, yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, how'd you know? But he talks about it's a golf analogy. Like your last swing is behind you. Your last shot is behind you. Your next one hasn't happened yet. The only thing you can do is focus on the swing right now. And I think that is like
Bingo.
It's like so true for anybody. It's like you can't think about where you're going to be in 5 years. You can't think about what happened over the last 5 years. All you can do is do today. and
You know
do
what?
your
Playing
best
the
at it.
game of golf is a really good insight into what the world of dealing with mental health is like.
And you get a lot of steps playing golf. So maybe have you considered playing golf? Maybe that'll fix you.
Is it cheaper than therapy?
No,
Fortunately,
no.
it's much more expensive.
It's got to be
Yeah.
more expensive than therapy.
But a hell of a lot simpler. You just hit a ball, whack a
Well,
ball, you know?
Yeah.
You can do disc golf.
Me-
Get incredibly frustrated with yourself, shame yourself over and over and over again.
Yeah, golf,
And then-
golf
I
is
think
bad for my mental health.
Hit a good shot,
I
get a
might just-
glimpse of hope.
I think I might just stick with slamming my head against a wall. It's been doing so well so far.
Honestly, it's probably better.
Cameo, I do love talking with you. And
Yeah, you're fucking awesome.
what's one thing you'd like to leave our listeners with before we wrap this up? And for the love of fucking God, can you please just not make it be so goddamn fucking sad?
So I had a pre-written eulogy. You didn't want to hear that?
You son of a bitch.
I apologize if I butcher it or if I mispronounce it, but in terms of, I have a lot of respect for John Green just as an author and as a mental health advocate. And he has a quote that says, there is hope even when your brain tells you there isn't. And I think that is so important because my brain's telling me a lot of crap every day, but you just have to remember that like there is that other side that you may not see. And once you get there, you're going to look back on this time in your life. And no matter how hard it is and how futile it felt, it won't matter so much because you'll be in such a better place.
Yeah. That's like exactly like my favorite quote. Live, laugh, love. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that order?
Same. Yeah.
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 Laugh,
Well, actually, I like
Love.
love, laugh, live.
live. Okay.
You know, you should get
To
right.
each their own.
Lift, laugh, love.
Yeah,
That'd
dude.
be really funny.
Yeah.
I don't live.
Cameo, thank you. Thank you for being.
I can tell.
Thank you for being.
Oh, earned
Thank
it.
you for being so.
See you later. Gotta go get my steps.
so honest and so open.
Fight me.
And thanks for rolling with the punches. Thanks for your humor because I really do. You're one of the funniest people we've had on the show, and keep us posted. Okay. Don't be a stranger. Let us in. Let us know how you're doing. And listen, I know you said you don't have any friends, and maybe that's true, but
You got us.
You've got us, and you can always at any time. I really do mean this. This is not. I'm not making this up. You can always reach out if you ever
Thank
wanna
you.
chat, and the fucking mics and the cameras don't have to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So
I
the door is
appreciate
always
that
open.
more than you know.
Don't
Unfortunately-
abuse it. No, don't fucking
902.
abuse it. But like, it is there.
Miracles of the internet and being 6,000 kilometers apart. We
That's
can
it.
still communicate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cameo. This has been. I really appreciate this conversation.
I really appreciate all of you making the time to speak today. It truly is a complete honor to talk with you guys again.